story planning.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back to House Human Services this afternoon. We are picking up on S-198, an act relating to the regulation of tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. And we have with us Wendy Knight from the Department of Liquor and Lottery. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. For the
Yeah.
record, Wendy Knight. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Liquor and Lottery.
And since this is the first time that you've been here, we'd like to do introductions so you know
Thank you.
to whom you're
Yeah,
speaking.
thank you.
I'm Teresa Wood. I'm from Waterbury, and I also serve Bolton, Fuel Score, and Huntington.
I'm Ray Garofano. I live in Essex and I also serve Essex Junction.
Hi there, I'm Esme Cole and I represent Hartford.
Zahn Eastis, yeah.
Zahn.
I live in Guilford and also represent Vernon.
Great.
Doug Bishop, and I'm one of Colchester.
Hi, good afternoon. Eric McGuire, I represent Rutland City.
Good afternoon, I'm Dan Noyes. I'm represent Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere.
My name is Ren Tatro, interning for Representative Noyes.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I think we might have sent your sympathies earlier.
Congratulations. The intern.
And Ledge Council?
Jen Kirby, we've
We
worked
met in
together.
another.
We also have very-
Hi, Jill. Yes. Linda,
Committee assistant.
nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Quick, brief introduction. I've been the commissioner of this department for 5 years, 5 years this month, actually. I used to be the governor's first tourism and marketing commissioner. That's how Zahn and I met in 2017 to 19. I actually have a healthcare background. So long ago, many moons ago, I was a strategic communications consultant and I worked with a lot of trade organizations in DC, health insurance, pharma, didn't work on big tobacco. So I was also the acting executive director of Cigna Healthcare of Northern New England, and I've wrote some healthcare books. So little healthcare background. I wanted to talk today about the current regulatory framework for tobacco regulation. I think that would be helpful if I could just walk you through that. So right now, the tax department is responsible for the licenses for wholesale tobacco. And the Department of Liquor and Lottery, we give the retailers the licenses. So there's a little bit of a disjointed there, right? So DLL, this really kind of stymies our ability to do the enforcement and compliance across the whole supply chain, because with the tax department, there is no fee, and the data from the tax department becomes privileged tax information. So we don't even actually know who is a wholesale license. This bill, as we know, transfers that responsibility, the regulatory responsibility from the tax department to DLL. And that's something that we had actually suggested in the fall when we were working on this, that we take over the wholesale licensing. In terms of tobacco license, retailers must hold a tobacco license and then a tobacco substitute endorsement in order to sell those products. We have 780 tobacco licenses, and about 520 of those are also establishments also hold the tobacco substitute endorsement.
Is there a separate fee for the endorsement now?
Correct. Yes. So right now we have the, it's not a separate fee. I'm going to get to that in a minute. There is a fee for tobacco endorsement, and it's currently $50. The way the structure is, and this is what has been referred to as coupling, there is really no coupling. And let me explain that to you. The current statute directs the department to not assess an application fee for the tobacco license when they're applying for a liquor license. That's why people think that that's coupled, right? So if this bill would separate those. And so you would have all tobacco licensees would need to apply for the fee. And the fee is $150 in this bill. It goes from $100, the retail fee, to $150, and that is basically inflation adjusted. And then the fee for the tobacco endorsement would go from 50 to 75.
How long has it been since those fees have been adjusted?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that there's been some conversation over the years when we go into Senate Economic Development, they talk about the liquor license fees. I think there's been some really good work. We really appreciate the work that had gone into the bill. We've been working with the AG's office and the tax department regularly, I would say, since the fall, before the bill was even drafted. And we really appreciate sort of that we appreciate the reasonableness that went into looking at the fees. And so what we have here in this bill are the retail fees are just basically inflation adjusted. Historic, I think when the bill was first introduced, they were significantly higher. And so that was not something that the department could support. Our retailers we hear that all the time, that the businesses are struggling. And so we would not be able to support and we've been clear about that. That's the high fees.
I guess I'm curious. And so if they're inflation adjusted, then we would have to know from whence they started and how many years it's been since they've been adjusted in order to use the inflationary.
Well, it's not set that way. It's just set. I mean, it's an equivalent of an inflation adjusted. They're going from, like I said, 100 to 150, 50 to 75. We're in agreement with those increases. I think the AG's office came up with someone.
Joint Kirby, Legislative Council. I think it was the joint fiscal office that
Right.
estimated
Right.
on what an inflationary increase would be.
Increase would be, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting this because when this bill will go to Ways and Means, because it has fee,
Yeah.
you might want to have background information about when was the last increase in the fee.
Thank you.
I'm sure they're going to ask that.
Yeah.
before, that's
Was,
all.
yeah,
And I'm sure it probably predated you.
it did.
Yeah.
So they haven't gone up since I've been there in 5 years. So the compliance checks and the administrative penalties, I want to describe a little bit how that's done now. So by statute, we are responsible for conducting compliance test of our tobacco licensees to ensure that they're not being sold to minors. So in 2025, we conducted 679 compliance checks and there were 59 failures. So about 8.6% failure rate.
Could you say those numbers again?
Yep. In 2025, we conducted 679 tobacco compliance checks and we had 59 failures, meaning 59 failed, right? They sold to minors. And that's 8.6% failure rate. So the Board of Liquor and Lottery has the authority to issue administrative fees and take administrative action. And that's for the licensee, the holder of a license. We regulate the licensees. There's another section in Title VII that talks about the civil penalty, and that is to an individual, right? And so when a civil penalty is assessed, it's much like it's handled much like a traffic violation, and it's referred to the judicial bureau. It's not the Board of Liquor and Lottery. So the compliance and enforcement right now for the online tobacco is an investigator gets on a computer, searches a web browser, buy tobacco online or something similar. They find websites they attempt to purchase. If they put in Vermont as a destination, it's supposed to deny the order. There's no law enforcement investigation needed for that, right? So if the site refuses, they're supposed to refuse the order. If it's completed, then those are referred to the Attorney General's office. In 2025, we did 119 online tobacco compliance checks. 29 of those were violations. That's a 24%. No, it's 24% failure rate. This year, 2026, to date, we've done 66 online compliance checks, and 5 of those were referred to the Attorney General's office. So that this year is a 7.52% failure rate. So key provisions of this bill, I mentioned it provides the wholesale license regulatory framework all resides with DLL, right? And so that makes sense. It's an annual fee. It's $1,245 is what's in there. And that's the fee that is the equivalent for the liquor wholesaler. Deceptive devices, we strongly support the prohibition of these devices. Codifying administrative penalties. This is where in the bill we've outlined that there are minimum administrative penalties and then mandatory license suspensions for subsequent violations. And those fees are pretty hefty. And we felt it was important that if licensees, if businesses are not abiding by the law, that they should be subject to higher penalties, as opposed to the license fee. As I mentioned, we wouldn't support a higher license fee. If you want to operate a business, let's make it, a little easier to do that in Vermont. And I already mentioned the increase in fees. So we went from, 110 for the tobacco license to 150. And then for the substitute endorsement, we went from 50 to 75 in this bill.
We have a question, Commissioner. Go ahead, Representative Bishop.
You were a moment ago talking about the civil penalties, and they're not insignificant. 1,000 for a second violation, climbing up to $5,000 civil penalty. It looks like, if I'm reading that correctly.
Are we talking about the administrative penalties or the civil penalty? Because the department issues administrative penalties. The Board of Liquor and Lottery, we do administrative penalties.
This is in section 1007 of the statute. The version I have, that's on page 9, but I'm not sure. Yeah, starting there.
Here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And ultimately it moves on to, if there's a second violation, $1,000 civil penalty. I'm just curious, there's a language issue here that I'm just trying to figure out as far as the age of the person you use to attempt to make these buys. The language of the statute, I don't think reads the way that it's probably practice. It says that you're looking for 90% compliance for people who are between ages 17 and 20.
Representative Bishop, are you at the bottom of page 9, top of page 10? Is that
Yes.
kind of section you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just thinking, if that's the language, if that's who's used for these compliance checks, and that's who's used that fines may be imposed, the language between 17 and 20, it's probably not what we intended. That sounds like you're only using 18 and 19-year-olds.
Yeah,
speculating that the language is
You're
intending.
looking at current language.
Yeah, current language that most likely it's maybe meant to be 17, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who are used in the compliance checks. I just raised the issue. I don't know if you want to check with someone in your office, but.
So that you're saying this is the current language,
It's the
and
current language.
it's specifying that we're achieving 90% compliance for buyers who are between 17 and 20 years of age.
Right.
And you're wondering why it's 17 and 20.
And the way that it reads between 17 and 20.
As if those are
Representative Bishop
the-
is believing that is only saying, I don't believe that's how you're utilizing it, but
But it's only 18 and
we
19
can
year olds.
discuss that with Ledge Council.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't want someone to try to get their way out of a civil fine if it's, by parsing the language in the way that I'm parsing it. That's all.
So
Somebody else is
Sure, yeah.
And mine.
with that, I'll take that.
Yes.
We discussed it, I think I think it could be there, I think it could be clarified if there are concerns about how it's being implemented, but this is largely separate from any actual civil violation, this is really looking at 90%
Compliance, right.
For the compliance checks. That's the part that's tied to the ages of the buyers.
I guess as I'm reading on in the next paragraph or section 2, it says the section after a sale violation or during a compliance test conducted within 6 months, et cetera, these penalties then follow.
Right, but that's for sales to individuals under 21 years of age. So it's really that, but it's my understanding the 17 to 20 years of age is tied to the aspirational goal of 90% compliance.
Okay.
May I rely on my Paula friend?
Yeah, sure.
Ms. Hannah Chauvin is the Director of Legislative Affairs for the department.
I have that. So we use minors that are between the ages of 17 and 20 for compliance rates. So you would not, I don't believe that you could get out of the penalty or violation by claiming anything about the age of the person to whom you're selling.
I think Representative Bishop is concerned that saying between 17 and 20 really means only 18 and 19.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you could probably read it either way, which is not always the clearest drafting, but I thought perhaps the department had an interpretation that they were using consistently based on that language. It sounds like that includes 17 and 20-year-olds.
Yes, it does.
So in markup, we can discuss whether we should change that or not. Okay,
Thank you. Sorry for that distraction.
and that's okay. Go ahead, Representative Steady.
Being an old lady and having a lot of experience and working in different jobs, the sad thing about it is you might get an employee that's mad at you, will sell to a minor to get you in trouble, so you'll get the fine. Is there anything in here that says if they had an employee that did this, they did the route, they fired the employee, that they could get out of the penalty because it would kind of be yucky to put somebody out of business because they had an employee that might have been mad, an employee that wanted to sell something to a friend. And so is there anything in here that says if the store owner took the steps and reprimanded the employee and dismissed them, if they would still get the penalty?
So the
I
way,
hate to see people put
Yeah,
out.
I understand.
I've seen it too often.
the way the penalties work in the department is it's the Board of Liquor and Lottery has the authority to issue the penalties or to defer the penalties or not issue the penalties. I mean, that's how it's structured now.
So they can, if they can prove that they handled the situation and they can get out of.
The board, well,
penalty.
I mean, they
I
haven't
know it's
avoided.
not in here, so there's no guarantee. So
Yeah.
let's just put the small business owners out of business.
So the way that, again, if we have a violation, the licensees can always come before the board.
Okay.
And we have a board hearing. If
Okay.
they don't, doesn't need to be in here because it's already, the Board
And
of
we got
Liquor
it
and Lottery
before.
already has the authority to do that.
Okay. And
So
it's on
they
the board.
they have the authority to, licensees can come in and say, I don't like that fine. Here's the reason why I shouldn't be,
Okay.
lose my license, that
Or
exists.
Pay the penalty.
Correct,
Okay. And
correct.
it's on recording here that you just said. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I think you were.
I was running through my list.
Yes.
Thank you for being patient with me.
And hopefully, will you be following this up with any written testimony?
Yes,
Like on the-
sure, I can do that.
Status,
Yeah,
the.
yeah. I can turn this into
Into
something that doesn't look like crayons and markers. Send it your way.
Thank
You
you.
can do that, yes.
Yeah.
So the one thing I would, a couple other things I would like to address, if I may, please, is I understand that there's been an amendment seeking to codify some of the reporting requirements that was worked on in the House. No, okay, you're shaking your head no.
I'm about to go down there.
Okay, never mind. Won't talk about that. But back to my original thoughts. So I understand that there has been some testimony this morning requesting that an investigator position for DLL be put back into the bill. And I would like to speak to that a little bit, if I may, please. So the DLL position was, we do our budgets in the fall. And that position clearly was not in our budget. So it's not in the governor's recommended budget. I don't think it's in the Attorney General's budget either, right? So that's how we handle positions and develop budgets. I also, this does not need to be a law enforcement investigator position. And so what I have suggested to the Attorney General's office is that they consider putting this position in their budget for the FY28 session, right? If they are the ones that are asking for this position, they should ask for it in their budget. It doesn't need to be an investigator. It doesn't need to be a law enforcement investigator. I'm not certain that the AG's office currently has the resources to handle additional referrals. We have 14 law enforcement investigators. I believe they have one, God bless you, that's okay. One full-time person that maybe spends 30% of their time on this. I think you also heard that the minority of purchasing of minors is online, right? So you heard some testimony that 23% of users reported purchasing their products online versus 43% purchasing the vapes in a store.
More are purchasing it in the store.
Sorry?
Yeah, we saw
More are
that.
purchasing.
Correct, correct.
Which is where your enforcement people come in.
Correct. Yeah, well, we do both online and,
Oh, right.
yeah. And so, the other point I would make is the funding mechanism really creates perverse incentives. You're funding this position with penalties. And I think you can understand that that's a real perverse incentive. And then I guess lastly, I would say that we would really appreciate the opportunity to see how this new regulatory framework works with the existing investigator resources, the existing referrals to the Attorney General's office. It feels a little odd to me as the appointing authority for a department that's responsible for putting budgets together to have another agency asking for positions to go into my budget. That doesn't seem logical. Like I, as the appointing authority, have the discretion and frankly, the expertise to work with the team to figure out what priorities of work we have and what positions I want to request in my budget. And again, I've suggested to the Attorney General's office that if they are looking for additional resources, they should put this in their budget.
So let me ask a question about the sort of the shift from the tax department to DLL for the wholesale license. And I'm presuming that means oversight of those organizations as well. So do you feel that you have sufficient resources within your current staffing to do the oversight and licensing of those, the enforcement, that's the word.
Yes.
The enforcement
Yes.
around those organizations. I have no idea how many wholesalers there are.
Well, we don't either because they're regulated by the tax department, licensed by the tax department.
Yeah.
So the way our licensing works is we use an online licensing portal. So there's not an extra lift in terms of people, say there's 30 or 20 wholesale licenses. That's not a significant lift. It actually will make it easier for the department to do compliance and enforcement by having us license the wholesalers. Right now, we have no idea who are the licensed wholesalers, which makes it really problematic for us to ensure compliance and enforcement. If we have the licensing of wholesalers, then that's public information. All of our licensed establishments are public information. We then have that and the investigators have that and they can go into a store and easily identify which of the products are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to get any big pushback about that transition,
Right.
from tax department to DLL. And that makes total sense in terms of your ability to follow up with enforcement activities and all of that kind of stuff. I guess, so I understood you to say that because it's an online portal, people will fill out. I'm presuming the tax department will notify people that that is shifting as of whatever the effective date of that shift.
Yeah, a year from now.
And then what I was less clear from you about is whether you felt like you had sufficient staff for the enforcement activities that would be required as a result of that shift.
Well, we're already doing the enforcement in a retail store, right? So the enforcement happens in the retail store, and then we can see the products that are there, and we can see that, oh, deceptive products are no longer allowed in the state. And so we can visually see the deceptive products, right? We can now see, because we have a list of the wholesalers that are licensed, we can go into a store and look at the products and look at the list. You look at an invoice, right? Where did you, just like we do with liquor. We need to see the invoice for the products you have on the shelf. We would do the same thing on the tobacco side. Now, these are the licenses, the wholesalers, let's see your invoice, and that's how we would do the compliance. It's just like how we do it now.
Maybe I'm not asking the question completely clearly. So for instance, it's illegal for the wholesalers to be purchasing certain items online. And so would you be doing any investigative work with regard to where the wholesalers are getting their product from?
So as part of the online compliance, we would be doing that, the online work that we do.
So, and so are you telling me that you have sufficient staff to do that? This is my question.
Yes, I'm telling you that we have sufficient staff to do the work.
Okay.
That's contemplated in this
bill.
this new regulatory structure. Yes.
And then I have a follow-up question around switching topics a little bit. There's been some discussion around, and I realize you're not the tax department, but in compliance, I'm presuming that when you go in and you look at tobacco and stuff like that, that you're looking at that tax stamp to make sure that there is such a thing on there so that there, is evidence that taxes are being collected. There's been testimony supporting something similar for vapes, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I believe that we testified that we were in support of a committee. There was a study committee. They wanted to study it because they need to figure out. There's only, as I understand it, there's a manufacturer that makes the stamp for cartons of cigarettes, and they need to figure out how to logistically. If you imagine that this is one of those
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of them.
Yeah. So they have to figure out mechanically how to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's being done in any other state that taxes.
I don't know. I don't know, but we could follow up with you on that. I think the tax department had advocated for a study, and they had requested that the Attorney General's office lead that study, not the tax department support that.
Representative McGuire.
Yeah, thank you. The SAM thing though, that's also gonna be, I want to put that on like Zen and the other products, right?
In all honesty, that's a part of this bill that I've chosen not to pay any attention to, because it's somebody else. So I can't answer anything about the stamping, because I personally have not been paying attention. I've been paying attention to the important pieces of this. Not that that's not important, but somebody else can talk to you about that.
All right.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
And we can follow up with, if you have a specific question that maybe, I don't know if it's me that's going to answer that or it's the tax department's going to answer that.
Okay.
I know that there's been some discussion with the tax department and the Attorney General's office. I guess in closing, I would say that, do you have any more questions for me before I summarize? I feel like
Well, I guess if we could just loop back, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I got it down. The number of staff that you currently have dedicated to do the compliance checks.
we have 14 sworn law enforcement officers. That's our compliance and enforcement team, 14.
Okay, and that's doing all of the various things under DLL. So, Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that this bill really makes some significant strides in strengthening the tobacco enforcement. We've worked really closely with the tax department and the Attorney General's office and a lot of your colleagues in the Senate and the House. This obviously would transfer that wholesale license to DLL. It codifies those minimum administrative penalties and the inclusion of consecutive license suspensions, and then it has the ban on deceptive devices. Our mission is to really maintain that regulatory framework of licensing, compliance, enforcement, education to support responsible sale and consumption of products. And so we really feel that this bill where it is now allows us to do that in a much stronger position.
Thank you. Go ahead, Representative.
Yeah, so is there anything else? I mean, I know you just said that it was strengthening your ability to do this work. Are we missing anything on how to give you what you need to keep this product away from children?
I think that this represents a significant amount of work where we are, this tobacco bill, and I'm really hopeful that we can continue to move forward with this in a way that it can pass this year and that the governor can sign it. I think I think it's a really good bill that helps strengthen our regulatory and compliance abilities.
So
Even if the governor wouldn't sign it, is there something that, I guess you really can't, but I'm just trying to make sure that kids don't have access to that.
Yes, so
We're really
so are
looking
we.
at health and.
Yeah, of course. And so are we. And I think the deceptive, banning those deceptive devices
Yeah,
makes imminent sense.
Mhm.
I think increasing the penalties on establishments that are selling to minors and they're not paying attention. I mean, we expect our licensees to be compliant. We do all kinds of education. We go in with an education first. So we really expect the licensees, and they do. For the most part, they're compliant. But the ones that aren't, they should have a higher penalty and they should risk losing their license if they're not doing what they need to be doing. And really putting all of the regulatory, that supply chain, putting that in DLL will make it significantly easier for us to make sure that products that aren't licensed are not sold and not on the shelves.
Do you know how much the department has issued and or collected in fines in the last year, through your activities, enforcement activities?
So we don't find the online tobacco, we refer those to the Attorney General's office, right? So the Attorney General's office.
Right, but
that.
retail, you find people, don't you?
Yes, if there's a violation.
Right.
Sure.
That's my question.
Well, I wasn't sure whether it was online or retail,
Gotcha.
but yes, we could get you that.
Okay,
Retail.
thank you.
Again, we have about a 92% compliance rate, so it's not a lot in terms of the failures or fines.
I think a previous witness said around 600 and some odd $1,000, and I just was trying to figure out if that was, accurate or if it was something different than that.
You
So
want to speak?
Sure. So I do
just stay for the record.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm not sure if I'm part of the term monitoring. So I think the testimony this morning was speaking to the amount that comes out of, the amount that is collected by the Attorney General's office from the cases
Yeah.
that are referred by the Department of Liquor and Lottery. We don't
Right.
have those funds that kind of leaves our hands when they're
Yeah,
referred.
there was actually two separate amounts that were listed. That's why I'm
Yeah, so I
just
can
trying to verify information.
I can guarantee you that we are not collecting $600,000 in violations of tobacco retailers. That sounds like, and what Ms. Chauvin's mentioning is like, so when there's an online, violation, we refer that to the Attorney General's office, and then they go after the unlawful.
Yeah, on the onsite.
Yeah, we can give you what we've collected in terms of violations, fees, fines.
And then another follow-up question, I've been trying to find it here in the language and I'm not having much luck, but I think that there is some place in here where we are moving from person to individual.
Back and forth.
Yeah, it seems to be, well, we have recommendations to switch it back and so I think that the intent was that the person in the retail establishment that sold the item is the person who gets fined. And is that what your current practice is, or is it the establishment that gets fined?
They both get fined.
They both get fined. Okay. Okay. And it's up to the establishment whether they pay the fine on behalf
Correct.
of their employee or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a company policy.
Are there any other questions for the commissioner? All right.
So we're going to give you written testimony. We're going to tell you the number of dollars for fines. And we're going to answer some questions you had about the stamping.
That sounded like that would be more directed towards the
Yeah.
AG's office
Yeah.
or the tax department.
Okay.
We would honestly only really need that probably if we defer from the study. It seems like there are enough questions to be asked and answered about.
In a study.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah, no.
I realize it's not as simple as it sort of sounds.
Yes.
And Ms. Chauvin, can we just need to update our witness list and, I didn't catch your first. Hannah, okay, thank you.
With an H.
With an H on the H.
Both ends.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
CHAUVIN.
Miraculously, I got that one right. Okay, any other further questions for this witness? Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, committee members, a couple of updates. One being, I have had some discussions with folks at the health department and folks downstairs in Senate, the chair of Senate Health and Welfare on 660, the opioid settlement bill. And there's some discussions happening around different intent and language and what's funded and what's not funded out of it. And it's just a sort of a heads up to not be surprised when you see something different come back from the Senate. But I think we can figure out how to work it out. It hasn't been voted out of Senate Health and Welfare yet, and perhaps we can take care of these things prior to them voting it out of committee. We did get a side-by-side. Now I'm bouncing up to H40, was it H or, H46, the Rare Disease Advisory Council. I forwarded on to you the side-by-side that was provided by the Vermont Rare Disease Advisory people. So I thought that was helpful. It didn't look like anything that we couldn't live with in terms of what they proposed for changes there, but that'll be going to the Senate floor and we should be getting that. That was your bill, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. And now I'm looking for a volunteer to report on S198. The bill we're just talking about, the tobacco bill. I can make an assignment.
You want me to do
That's
it?
right. I'd be happy to have you do it.
Sure.
All
No
right.
one else wants to do it.
Thank you.
I'll run out of
Appreciate it.
files.
I always want to appear
The
ready.
reason why I like to do this a little bit in advance is so that people pay particular attention. So they know what they're going to be reporting on. Okay. All right, folks, we'll end a little bit early today. Anybody have anything that they want to share or talk about? Is anybody here in any skits or any performances tomorrow night?
That's right. It's tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about? That's not related to something happening tomorrow? Say anything. Okay.